All right, welcome. Today we are taking a departure from our regular office hours and we'll be going through an overview of the post-challenge process bead map. My name is Laura Sasaki. I'm one of the program and project supervisors here at the CPUC in the bead branch. And I will go over our agenda on the next slide. So we'll have our welcome by Jonathan Lackritz, our program manager. We'll go over some things to know, and then we will walk into the overview of the map, and that's going to be Reddy Clayton Woolley. We'll talk a little bit about just kind of the housekeeping and what we're covering today, and then go into questions about map functionality. So just as a note, this session today is going to really be focused on the post-challenge process bead map. We'll be talking about some of the functionality of the map. We'll be going over what some of the layers are looking like, how you can navigate through that, and get an idea of where the results of the challenge process may or may not have impacted broadband serviceable locations in your area. So next week, we will be resuming office hours where we're talking about the subgrantee selection process or general bead questions, but today is going to be focused on the map. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan Lackritz.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Lackritz, and I'm a manager in the Communications Division and helping lead the effort on the bead deployment in California. Next slide, please. So we're very excited to be at this point where we have a final challenge map that's been approved by NTIA. And so I'm going to go through some background information and talk a little bit about a little more detail what we're going to be discussing today, and then turn it over to our partners at Reddy who will actually do a map demo. So this map that you will shortly see that's currently up on our website displays the results of California's bead challenge process that ran from July 8th, 2024 through August 6th, 2024. The challenge process results were submitted to the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, in December of 2024. After a rigorous validation and cross-checking by NTIA, California's challenge process results were approved in January of 2025. There'll be no further challenges to broadband serviceable locations. The challenge process is ended, with the exception that for enforceable commitments that have occurred after submission to NTIA, the map we'll be updating the map to reflect those enforceable commitments. With that exception, the map will not be substantively changed prior to the subgrantee selection process, but those enforceable commitments will definitely change the status of quite a few locations on the map. Next slide, please. So a couple things, the kind of technical things, the map and the data vintage. So the map is based on Fabric version 4 and with a Fabric date of December 31st, 2023. It's also based upon the National Broadband Map availability as of May 14th, 2024. We received and used a federal deduplication version date from October 1st, 2024. So this file contained all of the federal enforceable commitments that were valid at that point in time. We also have included in the map state-issued enforceable commitments, that is our federal funding account and California Advanced Services account awards that had been issued prior to September 26, 2024. As I mentioned, the map is subject to revision prior to the opening of the subgrantee selection process to capture state and federal enforceable commitments that have occurred either for federal after October 1st or for state commitments after September 26. Applicants may use the map and accompanying data sets to inform their project planning, but should anticipate updates to the enforceable commitments prior to the start of the subgrantee selection process. And we will be sending out constant contacts and updating our website when we have actually updated the map to reflect those enforceable commitments. Next slide, please. So the NTIA has issued reconciliation guidance allowing states to reflect enforceable commitments and ISD deployments that occurred after the challenge process results were approved by NTIA. So we're aware, as everyone is on this webinar, broadband deployment is a dynamic activity. Service providers are continuously expanding their footprint. Both the state and the federal government are issuing new enforceable commitments. There are approximately half a dozen state and federal broadband programs that are designed to increase deployment in the state of California. Per the NTIA guidance, states may perform the reconciliation before submission of their final proposal. We have not set a date yet to perform that reconciliation. We'll be providing more information about this process in the future. During today's webinar, due to the format and time constraints, we won't be addressing individual questions about how challenges were resolved. We encourage you to submit those questions you may have about individual challenge adjudications to our BEAD inbox at bead@cpuc.ca.gov. So we're really here to demo the map, help you better understand how to use the functionalities in the map. And with that, I'll ask Maria Ellis, our Deputy Director, in terms of if there's anything you would like to add to setting the stage for what's going to be a demo from Clayton Woolley from Ready.
Not much to add to what you said. More want to just say thank you to everyone who participated, who's here online, who participated in the challenge process to help us get to this map. We know it was not an easy lift for a lot of folks, but we really appreciate you partnering with the state in this effort. And we really look forward this map, that the approval of this map is actually a huge milestone for the state. And we did it so quickly. And it's so pivotal to us getting our solicitation window open in March. So we're really hopeful that you can kick around the tires, poke around, see what eligible locations are in your community, and that this will be helpful in the application process.
Thank you, Maria. So next slide, please. So now Clayton Woolley, Director of Technical Strategy at Ready.net, and known to many people who have been on previous webinars, is going to give us a demo of the post-challenge BEAD map as it's now posted.
Absolutely. Great to see some of you again and to meet some of you for the first time. And Jonathan, thank you for the introduction. I will pull up my screen now and we will start walking through the map. So let's see. Right, and here we go. Okay, can everyone see okay? Good deal. All right. So this is the updated homepage. This is the same site many of you visited during the challenge process. Just a couple of things to note. Please take some time and read the new introduction. With the new introduction, there's some important information about the program, what has happened, and what's coming next. In addition to that, with the map, there is a data dictionary as well, which is available for your use and reference as you're looking at the map. And we'll switch over there in just a minute, and you'll see there's a lot of information. So hopefully you'll find this helpful as you navigate. Next thing that we want to call attention to on the homepage is the data download section. So by clicking that link, it takes you to the same page. It's also available at the top, but this is where you are available, where you're able to download the different data sets for post-challenge results. There's also some information in these data sets as to what the different classifications mean. And so if something is unserved or underserved, which largely means below 100 by 20 download and a latency greater than 100 milliseconds, then those are BEAD eligible. If something is served or funded, it has an enforceable commitment that will not be BEAD eligible. And then here, there's also the post-challenge CAI list available for download. CAIs are community anchor institutions. And they have a different standard for service. To be considered served, they have to have 1,000 by 1,000 megabits per second or 1 gig by 1 gig. And the latency requirement remains the same. So without further ado, we'll scroll back up to the top and you can navigate to the map. So this is what you'll see upon clicking on the map phase. So it looks very similar for the map itself to the challenge process map and the challenge public facing map. Over here in the left bar, this is where most of the updates have come in. So hopefully you'll see at first we've added the relevant version information. And so this is where you can get a quick glance of what version of Fabric we're on, the Fabric release date, availability, federal deduplication, as well as state deduplication. So these would be for California specific enforceable commitments and when that layer was last updated. One other thing, this is a disclaimer about the different data sets coming in the map that Jonathan addressed earlier. This is where you can find that information, so please use this for your reference. And with that, we'll enter into looking at the different layers and some different tips and tricks with navigation, as well as explaining what's here. So one new feature, you can actually go back in time a little bit to pre-challenge. So if you change this dropdown, it will take you to the pre-challenge condition of the map versus post-challenge, which is the data set that we'll be using moving forward. So that's there for your reference. And as you zoom in on different areas, you can see more of like what changed over time. Additional layers will be added over time as we continue through the BEAD process. So here we talked a little bit earlier. If you're looking for BEAD eligible locations, a quick function to see what will be available at this time is by just selecting unserved and underserved locations. So you can see on the map, it takes away the served and funded, so you can get a better idea of what exists in each area. So conversely to that, if you want to see what is BEAD ineligible, you can click unserved and underserved off and just leave served and funded, and the map will update accordingly. So the next set of filters we have for reference are the challenge adjudication results. So this changes the map to show what happened during the challenge process, and there's a couple of different categories. So the first one that we'll take a look at are rejected. So these were challenges that were submitted and did not meet the required evidentiary standard or whatever it may have been, but we do have a history of those locations. The next category is sustained. So these were challenges that were successfully submitted and the evidentiary requirement was met. And so that was a sustained challenge. The next category, and there aren't too many of these, but these would be moot. So these are areas where a location was challenged and may or may not have been successful, but had no effect on the map. So they were moot. And then finally, we have not challenged. So these are locations that were not challenged at all and largely remain the same. So that is how you can navigate into those filters. And then quickly, I'll go into an area that was challenged. So you can see what actually happened through this process. So we added a quick reference in the location card that shows what the status was before and what the status was after the challenge process itself. Also here, there can be conditions where we have stacked locations. If I can find one, just one moment. There we go. So multi-address locations, this does appear on the map occasionally. When these are stacked, it acts the same as a location card. You just have to click into the specific location you're trying to look at, and it will contain any relevant challenge information to that location. So you can see here where one of this one unit essentially was moved to unserved while the other was moved to served. And while we're on that topic, it's important to note that not every challenge will be displayed on the map itself. We only surface the relevant information if there was an effect on the location or if there was one challenge and no effect took place. If you want the full details of the challenge process, that information is available for download. So you could do a deeper dive or more in-depth analysis if you're interested. And quickly, while we're here, just looking at the location card, so you'll have the address at the top, what happened during the challenge process, some basic geo identifiers, the building type, so whether it's residential, business, or CAI, as well as the unit count. And then there's also a list of providers at the address. So who is providing service today and at what level, so which category that falls into. Back to the filters, and we'll switch over to the eligibility filters map there. You can also toggle the map for the Community Anchor Institution or CAI layer. So this shows at a glance where the community anchors are or where the community anchors are not, depending upon how you set your toggles. Next, we have some equity layers. So these are for your reference. These exist across other California maps, and we wanted to bring those in just to give the public an idea of where these areas are, as well as applicants as they begin to prepare for BEAD, as this affects the application process. So those are just shapefile layers that overlay on top to give you a good geographic reference as to where those are. I'll reset my filters again, back to BEAD eligibility. Some of these layers here, which are other, they are affected by the zoom level. So if you're zoomed all the way out, you are able to toggle on the state middle mile network, which is shown with the orange dotted lines. And as you zoom in, you can see a little bit more. We're able to turn on different layers like state highways and or railroads. The state highways are blue, the railroads are gray. And again, to reiterate, all of this information is contained within the data dictionary that we showed on the homepage. So clicking these layers off. Other boundaries we have, so this is the political boundary category. So you have census blocks, census block groups, congressional districts, and I'll zoom out a bit to show those. You have tribal lands as a layer as well. County boundaries are defaulted to on when you're looking at the map, and you can also see the name of those different counties. And then zooming back in, once you get to the right level, you can also look at different city boundaries, Senate districts. I'll zoom out to show those, and assembly districts. Let me toggle some of these off so it comes through a little bit more clearly. So Senate and assembly. So that's just a brief overview of the different layers that are available across the state. So I'll come back, toggle on county layers, and then finally we'll go through the filters. So filters can be used to see all sorts of different information broken into 3 categories: funding programs, broadband technology, and internet service providers. They are two-way filters, and we do allow for multi-selection. So for instance, if I wanted to see all of the CASF programs, I can toggle those on and zoom into the different areas with these locations. Something to mention here, and this is also explained in the data dictionary, there's above baseline, which would mean it's above the baseline requirements of the program. Those requirements are program specific. So you'd have to read a little bit more about those programs to understand. But so if the program baseline is 100 by 20 for service, then above baseline would be anything above 100 by 20. And then gigabit is a gigabit tier, meaning it's getting 1,000 by 1,000 service. So that's what these different filters are. And then demonstrating both of the ways the filters can be used. You can either see all locations that fall into that category, or you can hide all locations that fall into that category. Refresh here. like so. The next is broadband technology. So here you can click into a specific technology and show all those locations. So looking at this one, I can see everything that has fiber to the prim. And if I want to expand that to see everything that has fiber as well as license fixed, I could select both of those. Or if I'm just looking for cable, same deal there. And you can also toggle everything shown with cable or everything not shown with cable, or any of the other technologies that exist within this drop-down list. And then the final filter is down here with Internet Service Provider. You can type and search by name. You can select from the list. So if I'm looking at all of the served by AT&T locations, I would click on this. And if I wanted to see everything that is not served by AT&T, I would click this filter and remove those locations. Finally, we have different base maps as well, just in case you want to get a different view. So for instance, I could turn on satellite. It's going to be a satellite view. There's a light map, and then there's also a street map, which has a little bit more detail than the light. And that is it. Oh, and I used the functionality, but forgot to mention, there's also a search by address function up there in the top right and accessibility tools down here in the bottom right of the map. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Okay, so we are going to go into our question and answer about the map. We'll just kind of touch on, for those of you who may or may not have been in one of our Q&A sessions, we'll kind of touch on the housekeeping for that. So next slide, if you would. As Diana has already done in the chat, when you have a question that you would like to ask, please write it in the chat. We are using that so that we can publish those questions online after the session for those who may not have seen the answer or heard the answer. We would ask that that you keep yourself on mute until we call on you. In most cases, we're able to answer the question as it is asked, but in some instances, we'll ask you to unmute and clarify. We typically will go through a first round of questions to make sure that everyone has had a chance to ask a question and have it answered. And if you have a follow-up, please go ahead and write that in the chat. Some other things to note that we touched on at the top of the hour is that this question and answer session is intended for questions for map functionality. So if we have additional questions about a particular adjudication for certain broadband serviceable location or locations, please email us at that bead at cpuc.ca.gov email. So with that, we'll go ahead and take the slides down, and I'll go to our first question, which is, Clay, this may be a question for you, but from our drop down on the map, what is the TLP program?
The TLP program is the telephone loan program, and I believe that is a USDA program.
Thank you. Okay, from John, when post-challenge quote unquote funded is selected, it also it also shows unserved and underserved. Please clarify that the unserved and underserved are not funded. I can clarify that that is correct. It is a little bit of a bug that we found right now. So we are getting that corrected. So when those are either clicked on or clicked off, it does have the correct view. So thank you for that comment. Mitzi, yes, what you are seeing, and you'll see it in the slide deck that we post following these office hours, this has been approved by NTIA. We received approval in January of our challenge submission and challenge results. And as we receive additional enforceable commitments after, there's a couple dates that you'll see in those slides, but essentially after October 1st, both for state and federal enforceable commitments, those will be the only things that are really updated in the map as of So Melissa, can you please post a link to this map? I think we posted it at the top, but maybe somebody on the team can grab that and post it in chat again for us. So Tamira is asking, in the last slide, you indicate that the NTIA provided guidance to update the map for ISP deployment subsequent to the challenge process. How will this happen? And this one I'm going to refer to Jonathan.
Yes, so the short answer is we'll be releasing more information as we progress through the subgrantee selection process about what that reconciliation process will look like. We are hopeful that NTIA will be providing some more guidance, and we're also looking at how some other states have done it. So more information will be forthcoming on that.
Thank you. Nathan, we were provided only location IDs from the data download. However, when we pull in FCC data, December 2023, some locations IDs don't have addresses. How do we resolve? Sorry about that. I have someone in my way. I am going to refer that, I think, over to either Clay or Phil, if one of you want to take a stab at that. And I do think that some of this also goes to what Jonathan just talked about reconciliation.
Yes, Clay, if you would like to take a first crack, I can fill in if anything's missing.
Sure. I think it has to do with it could be a version issue. It seems indicated by your question that you did pull the proper version, but there are different challenges that took place, such as a missing location challenge that could have come through the FCC challenge process, or a missing CAI challenge, which would have come through the BEAD process. It's also able to go through the FCC challenge process. As far as how to reconcile that, I think I may defer to you, Phil, there on different tips and tricks that may be helpful.
Thanks, Clay. And that's a very good question. The version of the data that you reviewed there, which is the December 23 version, which is used here, obviously there's been a number of changes that have occurred in the last year. And it may well be that some of the location IDs that you see do not have addresses. At this particular point, the best way is, if you have some questions on locations that you cannot find, please put them in an email to us. We'll review them and then we can get back to you.
Thank you. Carolina is asking, they've cross-referenced some of the BEAD challenge maps with the CSV data downloads and found discrepancies among the data. For example, locations are designated correctly as BEAD eligible CAI, but the BEAD map is either missing the BSL entirely or is misidentified as residential. I think, Clay, if I am not mistaken, this may kind of go to what we were talking about in the demo about the layering. And also, so whether or not it actually had an impact on the end map. Would that be kind of an accurate capturing of this? And go ahead.
Yes, it very well could be. And anytime there is a data discrepancy or something that we should look into, happy to take a look. And I believe we have a help desk set up for inquiries and questions like that. But I would definitely defer to the CSVs when it comes to eligibility. The public-facing map, it's representing a large amount of data. There's millions of data points in California. So the CSV is our approved list. And the public map is really meant for reference, quick guidance, and a visual of these different areas.
And I think something to add, there's a couple things to add. One is that we're talking right now strictly about the public facing map and the data downloads. There will be a different layer of functionality and visibility that is available once folks go into the application process and into the portal and are working through it that way. So this is not intended to be an interactive map to actually go in and build all of the projects. That will be something that occurs once we have the subgrantee selection portal up and running and folks are registering and going through the application process. And then additionally, if there are specific questions about individual locations or whether there are discrepancies or just things that we need to work through or talk through, please go ahead and reference that BEAD email that we said, and then we can kind of have that back and forth. And if we need to bring Ready into the conversation about whether it's the way that things are displayed on the map, and we just kind of need to point you in that direction, we can do that as well.
Or just a lightning quick clarifying question on that. Is it being made clear to the ISPs that they should be using the CSV as like the source of truth and not the public facing bead map? Because I am imagining local community oriented ISPs looking at the map and not seeing the accurate data. So I think that's our number one concern, is that local ISPs are not going to have the accurate data if they're looking at the map and not the CSV.
So one thing that's notable when you're looking at the map, there is nothing for data downloads. So there's nothing that you can go on the map and download data from the map. So you actually do have to go to the data downloads in order to get that accurate information. That's something that we have communicated out widely to thousands of people, including ISPs, through the constant contact communication when this was released. It's posted up on our website. It's also posted on this site. So there's not, again, it's going back to what the functionality of the map currently is. This is a public facing map for people to see kind of what the result of the challenge process is to a certain degree, right? Clay was talking about the stacking of locations. If you're really looking for what the results are and want those data sets to be able to maybe leverage as an ISP would one of their CostQuest licenses to be able to start manipulating that data and working with that data, then they would need those data downloads. Which, as we've said, is kind of right now the record, the data of record. I hope that helps answer that question. Bruce, whoops, hang on, something popped up. Let me just, okay, there we go. Will BSLs in our fabric without addresses still count against the 100% of the BSLs we need to serve in a census block, or can we eliminate them from the 100% of the BSLs? I think if I am reading that correctly, that's probably more of a subgrantee selection process question. Does that sound correct, Jonathan? Something that we would probably want to take back and discuss.
Yes, we'll definitely want to take it back and discuss, and to the extent that specific examples can be provided, that if you want to send a note to our BEAD subgrantee at cpuc.ca.gov, that would be helpful with the specific BSLs you have questions about. It's unfortunately, the analysis has to be by BSL to understand the question further.
Right.
And
If I can just for 1 second, Bruce Fogan from Marin County, we're so close on this 90% rule that one BSL or two BSLs is going to matter, reducing it from 100%, the 100% cost estimate that we have to provide, with the 90% alternative. So that's why I'm asking if I have 4 or 5 of those in my fabric that I don't have to count in 100%, makes a big difference. So I'll send you an email kind of reflecting a map and what that looks like to us.
Great, thank you for that context. We will look out for your email.
And I just added, for those of you who have questions like Bruce did that are very specific to the upcoming subgrantee selection portion of the BEAD program, we have a dedicated email for that, which is the BEAD grant at cpuc.ca.gov. And that is just to keep those questions kind of flowing and distinct from more general questions about the program itself, or questions you may have about the challenge process. So Pete is asking, are the location IDs or addresses essentially census blocks, or are they different? Clay?
Different. location IDs, and you'll see on the map, we're not able to display location IDs along with their addresses in the same location because of the licensing agreement. So a census block and a census block ID designates like an area, and there are multiple addresses and location IDs that live within that census block or census block group. But those are different, distinct things.
Thank you. Melissa's asking a question, and we got a thumbs up that other folks want to know. Can you please tell me when potential applicants will have access to the updated map that will be used for the application process? So we will be releasing additional information about when that can be expected. It will be nearer to the start of the subgrantee selection process, which as of right now we have targeted for March 25th of 2025. So it will be closer to that date. But as we have more information that we can make available, we will do so. And we will be leveraging largely both our website as well as the Constant Contact. So if any of you are not signed up for that communication with the Constant Contact, I would encourage you to do so. And I will go ahead and put that link into the chat as well. All right, we got through our first round of questions. Do we have any additional questions that you would like to ask about the map? You're welcome. Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll just kind of go into our wrap up. So Sam, if you can bring up the next slide. All right, so next steps and reminders. Next slide. This is the link that I will put in the chat to sign up to receive the email updates. For questions, as we said earlier, about the subgrantee selection process, you'll email beadgrant@cpuc.ca.gov. For general BEAD program questions or questions about the about the challenge process, you'll reach out to us at bead@cpuc.ca.gov. Additionally, our BEAD homepage has kind of a running history of all things BEAD from the very beginning, as well as the most recent updates to the program. That includes what you saw here today, references to the map and the data dictionary, as well as the provisional timeline that has been released for information and timing on the subgrantee selection process. And we also, well, one more, let's go back real quick. If we can also drop a link to the frequently asked questions page. This is important because some of you are going to and have submitted questions about the subgrantee selection process. Just wanted to let you know that we have some updates that just posted on that site that have a compilation of questions that have come in, and as well as answers for that. So you can reference that for additional information. Okay, next slide. So we will not be holding a webinar next week on Tuesday, but we will continue office hours as you have known them for subgrantee selection on Thursday, February 20th. As we said before, office hours and webinars are open to all who wish to participate, and they will be posted on our BEAD events page. And before we close, I want to make sure that I do get you that mailing list link. Here it is. You can subscribe to updates on the BEAD program from this link, as well as on our landing page, our BEAD homepage as well. So I do want to thank all of you. As Maria said, I want to echo our appreciation and thanks for those of you who participated in the challenge process that has resulted in this map and approved a list from NTIA. And thank you for being here today to go through kind of how the functionality of the map. If you have any questions about that, if it is a question about how to use the map, that question would go to Ready. They have an email that you can access. It's linked at the bottom of the bead page, but I will also post it here. That is for technical questions regarding the map. And then for other questions, which may be policy related, you can email us here at CPUC. So thank you to everyone for your participation today. We look forward to seeing you next week with your questions regarding subgrantee selection.